Good morning and welcome to the Leadership Insurance Podcast. I'm your host, Alex Bond, and I'm very lucky to be joined by Daniel, CEO of Evari. Daniel, good morning. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me on the show, Alex.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, I'm saying good morning, but we just discussed that it's 8 p.m. where you are, and you're calling us from Australia. I think you're our first Australian guest. I don't. You're not our first Australian guest. You're our first Australian guest based in Australia. So yeah, that's we like first on here. So you can have that accolade.
We talk about a bit what's happening down under and a bit what's happening in other markets as well.
Yeah, of course. Well, look, before we get further into the podcast, love to hear about what Evari does and the purpose of the business.
Yeah, great. So just a quick background of me. I'm the insurance guy out of the three founders. I was the CEO for Zurich Insurance for Australia and New Zealand before I took on this role. And when I came out of that, joined with my two co-founders, Brack and Rob, we've all started in Australia, and they both now have moved to London. So we're a London and Australian-based insurtech. And what we do at Evari is we offer the full end-to-end insurance in the cloud. So it's a full end-to-end quote, bind, rate, policy administration, so that it's completely flexible for insurers to use however they want.
Perfect. Yeah, and I really want to dig into that, but I think before I do, and as you rightly pointed out, I've sent you a question which I've jumped to, really missing an important part of the journey. And you know, it is a business that's kind of it's not the business you started out with right back when. So I kind of wanted to know, what was the business as you started out, and then obviously, as it's evolved to what it is today.
Yeah, that's great. Look, so really, we came at this whole problem for insurtech from a small business angle, my history at Zurich was number one small business insurer in Australia. So I had a bit of experience in that. And when I was the CEO, I went out to as many claims situations as I could, and I was really amazed at one big flood event where a customer was so annoyed with his insurance. And I thought, we are the only company at Zurich that covered flood insurance for small businesses. And I said, how can you be cranky? We're the only ones covering it. We're going to have a big loss here. And as I looked into this circumstance, our assessor had been out there and said, look, the customer's insured for about £500,000 Aussie, so about £250,000. And there was at least 1.6 million Aussie worth of damage. So sort of £800,000 worth of damage. So, and for a small business, that's devastating. I mean, if someone like you or I just lost £500,000 because they've got the wrong number on their insurance policy. So we and my two co-founders had similar challenges in their experience about, insurance not being flexible. So the first product we came out with was to link into cloud accounting, so that we could take the data from the cloud accounting and update it in the insurance process and make the insurance fully flexible. So we linked into QuickBooks and the Australian local version called MYOB. And we set it up, and to do that, we decided we needed to change the whole insurance system. Like, we weren't going to just start with the front end. We wanted to do the whole policy administration system. So we did that, and our first product, we thought, wow, this is great. A lot of people were very excited about the product. But I got to say, the challenge we had was that customers didn't buy it because they said, well, who's Evari? And you want to have my cloud accounting data? Like, I don't know who you are. So we then went into another product for what we call in Australia tradies and professionals. So contractors, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, people like that. And what we did with that is we had a pause feature on that. So we still had flexible insurance, so I could change, but we actually gave the responsibility back to the insured to change their insurance. So we attracted a lot of customers who only wanted to insure for 3 days a week. We had a lot of people working on Monday to Wednesday. They'd turn their insurance on Monday morning and they'd turn it off on Wednesday night. Or they'd go on holidays and they'd turn it off for 2 weeks. And again, that was the ability of our platform to make insurance flexible. But when we had both those products, other insurance businesses looked at us and said, "Wow, we like what you're doing. Can we license your technology?"
Yep.
So we were a direct to small business insurer in Australia as a Lloyd's cover holder, sort of an MGA, and we call them underwriting agencies in Australia. So we're an MGA. But then we said, oh well, actually we can make this a SaaS business. And actually our first SaaS customer we met in Fenchurch Street in London. So our first customer from a SaaS perspective was actually based in Chicago. So we sort of went from doing stuff in Australia to doing stuff in the US. So the first product that we had on our SaaS platform was earthquake, landslide, and flood insurance in 4 West Coast states.
Oh, wow.
And so it was great being able to say that, Californians can buy earthquake insurance from software developed in Australia.
Yeah.
And in that process, we built our SaaS platform. So that was sort of version 2 of our platform. Version 1 was our MVP, which we offered through our MGA. Version 2 was our SaaS platform, and we used obviously everything in the cloud. We used a microservices approach. It was all API enabled. But we didn't have event streaming at the core. That was really our challenge from a technical point of view. And we also didn't build, we didn't fully separate the configuration layer from the platform layer. So we had business logic in the application layer, which we were warned about this, which is as you scale, you start to get spaghetti. So what we did is we actually rebuilt our platform for a third time with event streaming at the core. And we then had a clear distinction between the application layer and the configuration layer. And what this has enabled us to do then is we could have multiple different insurers on our platform with their own configuration. So they can still program their own competitive advantage into that configuration. And we sort of range from low code, no code to some code, depending on what a customer wants. So really a composable approach where insurers can say, well, this is what I want. I want to take the standard for this, but I want mine for this, or I want, it's still a microservices approach, so they can take the friction out of implementation. So we've got, one customer who still uses their old pricing engine, and uses our SaaS platform. And that business has now become a big business for us. We operate, our business is based in the UK and Australia, and we've got customers also in the US. So we're sort of operating across three countries. And fortunately for us, someone came and made us an offer for our direct to small business insurance. So we've now sold that business. So our pivot has worked. We've actually exited part of the business.
I was going to ask you, sorry, just to interrupt, Daniel, but I was going to ask you about that piece. Like, how long was that process from saying, right, this is our business model, to now we're going to focus on the software? What was that? Because it won't have been the first conversation you had saying, oh, your software is quite cool. Like, oh, great, we're going to pivot. I'm just interested about pivots, about how long that took, and how much of it was driven by more opportunity or kind of maybe an underwhelming performance of the initial business idea. What was that kind of journey like to make that decision?
Yeah, well, it was really because we had this opportunity in the US to be able to offer our SaaS platform, and we thought if we could manage across 3 locations and deal with the compliance and the taxes and all those sort of things. And as we got further into that, we realized that this is going to be a big business. So we were actually, look, every startup is capital constrained. You've got to, and also the founders only have a certain amount of time every day. And, I was not surprisingly, I was the licensee here. So, I'm dealing with a lot of compliance stuff. And so when someone did approach me, we went, oh, great, we can actually focus on one business. So look, it took a while, but I got to say that the great thing is, because the 3 of us managed an insurance business, my 2 co-founders weren't from insurance. Brax, the technical co-founder, Rob was the head of risk at a bank. So he comes with a risk background, but not an insurance background. So we ran that business for a number of years. So we really got to understand, well, what do customers want? What are the complexities? What does the capacity want? And dealing with all those compliance issues. So look, it was a great thing to be able to do that. But then pivoting actually took probably took 2 years. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like you wake up one day and go, right, I've changed.
Yeah. Well, that's what I thought. It's a slow sort of burn. I mean, I shared briefly with you that I didn't go into it, but my business has pivoted 3 times. You know, I was running a search business with a partner. We decided we wanted different things, so I spun out because we already had this business called FinPro Analytics that was going to focus on data science that we were just going to invest in and not work in. So then I had a website, so I went, well, I'll go with that. And then I dropped the analytics bit and focused on insurance. And then 3 years ago, I specialized in insurtech. But that's kind of more of an evolution. But even that took, it took some time and thought. Aside from going, right, I mean, it's the equivalent of me going, actually, I'm going to build a CRM system for recruitment. It is a big shift. But I think it's really interesting. I wanted to just touch on your team there as well, because what do you think that this says about successful entrepreneurial teams and the way that they're built up? What do you think that says, that process of pivoting and that's different to, you've had big, good, you've had very large corporate jobs and the corporate environment. Just wanted to get your take on, what do you think that says about entrepreneurial teams?
Look, I think for entrepreneurial teams, you really have to take every opportunity that comes up and be open to opportunities. And look for us, Serendipitous meetings have been a big thing about what we do. I met my co-founder. Well, I didn't know my 2 co-founders at all before we started this. I met Rob at San Francisco Airport. We were both in the Valley researching our insurance ideas, and we came off the same Qantas flight, and we met in San Francisco Airport. And I've actually been on the tube between Heathrow and the city, and someone recognised me who was Australian, and so we interviewed that guy and goes, these serendipitous meetings, we go, they're happening for a reason. So really, our pivot was really being open to the fact that there's an opportunity here, and then spending enough time on that opportunity to be able to see whether it's a real opportunity, but also, saying no quickly too, because there are some things you do that you just go, well, I thought that was a good idea, but it's not really. And I think that the great thing, I would find it hard to be a single founder. I mean, I think having 3 people to have ideas. Also, we come from 3 very different backgrounds. The 3 of us think differently, but we talk, all the time. And even though we're in 3 different locations, and the craziness of the last 2 years meant we haven't actually seen each other face to face for 2 years, we just, we're able to go, well, what about this? Let's change. And some people go away for a holiday for a week and come back and go, oh, that changed. Oh, well, that's what you've got to start up.
So, I think that flexibility is fascinating. It's such a strange environment to be in. It still feels alien to say, oh, you haven't been in the same place. But then, I'm thinking back, and in the last 2 years, all of my biggest clients I've never met face to face, which was so alien to me 2 years ago, but it's not the case anymore. But I wanted to ask you as well about timing. So, you've got great CV, going great guns in the corporate world. Why now? Why was it for you like this point in time that you thought, other than serendipitous meetings with strangers in airports and on tubes? But yeah, why was it specifically now?
Look, I think it was because we're really driven by the customer. Customer. I have a firm belief that, look, it's the insurance industry that has to change, and that change has to come. That change will come from within and from outside as well. But insurance is quirky, and if you don't get capacity, you don't get a license unless you've had some experience. So for me, it was about the industry has to embrace the customer more. We have to be more customer friendly. That change has to come from within, and really for me, once I decided to do it, it's like, well, this is what I'm passionate about. Let's go for it. And also, I've been fortunate to be on a number of industry associations, and the thing that I've been passionate about is how do we attract more people to the industry? Because you ask how many people fell into the insurance industry, and hand up, I did. But now with insurtech, we're actually bringing people who want to come in here because they go, hey, look, this is an exciting area to be. I can apply my different skills to this market. Look, I just think that all these things are coming together. I also went to the first InsurTech Connect conference in Vegas, and I went there, and there were only 1,000 people at the first one, which is still a big number. But it was just like, wow, this thing's just starting. This is exciting. How do we get into this, and how do we do it in a thoughtful way?
I think it is. Well, I mean, obviously, I think it's exciting. I'm very biased on that, and I'm also very jealous of trying to get to the InsurTech Connect. I worked out the only way I could do it, so I had to go to another country for 2 weeks first and then fly into Vegas, which I would have done, but I actually had a trip to Portugal planned. So, and I just couldn't work it out this year. So I'm hoping to get out there because it looks brilliant, because there's certainly not only 1,000 people there now.
That's right. And at the first one, we met our capacity, we met investors. It was just like everyone's ready to go. I actually went from there straight to London, and we negotiated a capacity sort of
really?
After that meeting, which was good. Yeah, so it's great connections made there.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's still. I mean, I think that's the thing. I mean, like, look, distance working works, remote working, these calls. I think one of the things I've talked about a lot to people anecdotally is just that I think our skills have got better on conference calls. There used to be this awkward formality and no one knew how to do it, but now it's so commonplace that you can build rapport over these. It's would we all like to be face to face? Probably yes, we would, but I don't believe that you can't. But yeah, I think these communities are really, really important. And I want to ask you about that actually, because I know you've got a role in insurtech Australia, but I just wanted to sort of jump back a bit as well to Evari. But one thing that came up when you were talking about sort of co-founders, like obviously when your first iteration of the business, it's not a pure tech play. It's more of a traditional kind of MGA product base. How did you feel about that as someone that's got bringing sort of the insurance smarts, and then you're building more of a tech business? I just, very personal question, but it's like, was there ever an element of insecurity because you're a bit more out of your comfort zone, or was that an exciting bit, or how did you feel about that? Because, to a certain extent, you might go, okay, I know less about this new iteration than I do the previous iteration. So, I wondered how you thought about that.
Yeah, look, I think so when we started out, we always wanted to have flexible insurance as the core. So we always decided that we were going to rebuild the whole policy administration system. And that was one of the early meetings I had with my co-founders, where I sort of did the traditional insurance thing, which is, so which policy administration system will we use, and they said, no, we're going to build our own. I'm going, what? You're going to build your own? There's a whole bunch of, dead businesses who've tried to build their own in the past. And now actually we've done that. So it's really through understanding what my co-founders have been driving from the tech point of view. Look, I think pivoting now to a more of a SaaS business, it's still insurance. We're still offering lots of insurance. So it's really good when we've got someone like, I understand the challenges that insurance executives have, and I understand the challenges of dealing with a regulator and dealing with a lot of people issues and dealing with head office but at the same time we've got really smart tech people with us who we can go and say, look, we can change your tech. You can really get to the point where you can meet your business objectives, you can have a better loss ratio, you can have a better combined ratio. By driving the technology, but you can also have much happier customers, and that those things together are going to lead to a better business outcome. So it's really the combination of the tech and the insurance, and the tech's just an enabler. I mean, really, at the end of the day, we're about how do we better service customers, which everyone in the industry wants to do. So.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. I mean, I think the reason I asked you that question is because we did the Female Leaders in Insurance Technology webinar, and one of the things that came up was, I was asked like common misconceptions about getting a role in insurtech, and one of my things was that you had to get comfortable with you get these really smart tech people, you come across with your insurance knowledge, and to some extent, a lot of that you can hardwire built into the technology. So, right, you sort of almost uploaded some of your knowledge base, but then you have to get comfortable having this like much broader experience, because as in your business, to start with, you are the insurance guy. So if there's an insurance question, doesn't matter if you're more claims in your background or more underwriting, or, you know, if there's a question in insurance, you're the person that people look to answer it. Now, obviously, you know, having a C-suite role, top down, you had that kind of 360 view. But a lot of people, that's the challenge, is that because we love siloing people in insurance. You know, you have your very siloed specific role, then you go into an insurtech, and it's you have to adopt broad skills, and you have to be willing and wanting to sort of adopt and change and learn new stuff, and that, yeah, it's something that came out. So, you know, someone with your resume and obviously being a founder, I was interested to see how that pivot kind of changed. Talking about Evari, I think we described it as like a complete system. So I kind of wanted to know, firstly, you know, I know what I think it probably means, but I don't want to kind of guess. But in terms of a kind of complete offering end to end, you know, how do you define it, and what does it cover? And then also, like, why was that important to you to build that rather than, like, for example, one part of the process?
Yeah. Well, really, we went. You know, I mean, the way to best describe it is, we went to the core of the policy administration and made sure that we built the quote, the rating, the bind, the claims, the first notification of loss, and yeah, we do the financial part of the claims process. So we're not a project management system, sure, but we could design that on our system as well. And the reason why we had to go, so what I see is a lot of front ends that still have the dinosaur at the back end. Mm-hmm. And we've got a fundamental belief that the only way we're going to get true innovation right the way across the insurance value chain is by having the ability to change the technology across the whole value chain. Mm-hmm. So that you can use data. I mean, that's why the event sourcing, the event streaming way of programming is so important, because you use the same data right the way through the process. So that informs the way that the customer experience is going to be at the front end, but it also informs how the pricing should be. It should also inform, you know, what the after sale service is, and the after sale service only comes after you have the policy administration, because you need to have the documents. Mm-hmm. So really, we wanted a completely flexible approach so that we could work with people in insurance companies who really wanted to drive innovation but didn't have the tools. Mm-hmm. And I know that myself. I know I've been an underwriter in pain. I mean, they were the people we were looking for first, were underwriters in pain. People who were people who knew that they could make a better result from their underwriting portfolio, but just the systems didn't let them. They had data, but they couldn't use it. Or they knew what the customer wanted in a different way. They wanted to introduce new policy terms, but it just took too long to actually program them in the system. So really, we wanted, and we came from an underwriter's point of view at first, but also from a customer's point of view, going, how can we get better policies out there? How can we get more flexible insurance? How do we get it so the customer is just insured? Because that's really where we want to be in the end, is just, you know, you go and buy something and then you make a decision as a customer, do I want that fully insured or partly insured? Mm-hmm. And I also firmly believe that a lot of our claims challenges in our industry are because we didn't sell it right in the first place. And that's why you have to know all the way through the chain so that you get the right customer experience at the front end. The customer buys the right product, they pay the right premium, you get the right returns on the underwriting portfolio, and when the claim comes, you just pay. Mm-hmm. And we know in the industry that we pay the vast majority, like 98% of claims. The customers don't feel that, because they feel like we're trying to diddle them at the front end. So really, that's why we wanted to do the whole system. I'm going on about the customer experience, obviously, because that's so important to us. But that's why we wanted to bring flexibility to the whole process, rather than have just a front end clicking in an old back end without that flexibility.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's something that really resonates with me, and I think you know, we've talked about Funnily enough, we've actually I've recorded an episode with someone that's doing an insurtech based on vertical SaaS models. Like, so it's a really interesting take on embedded, and I think particularly small business owners, we're almost spoilt for choice with the amount of, and I know this is more kind of small business. You're spoilt for choice with all these technologies you can build in, and you can pick and choose your, like for example, I've got a CRM system, I've got a marketing system, I've got other technologies that I plug in, accountancy, etc. It's not necessarily helpful, like even from my own point of view, and you flip that on the insurance side as well. That, like you say, that they all have to talk to each other, which they do, but they all also have to be efficient and good and use. Realistically, when it comes to it, I think insurance fundamentally misused the data, and I think I shared this with you before, and I bore people to death with this, but I distinctly blown away by how many times as a small business owner I'm asked how much coverage I want for things. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. Like, how do I know what the average professional indemnity claim is towards someone that runs a headhunting firm? I don't know, and I'm in the industry, so asking me how much cover I want is a meaningless question. It's and we do this across financial services. Insurance isn't a loan. It's like when you buy a house and the mortgage, and they go, well, if your house is destroyed, how much would have to be rebuilt? How do I know? Absolutely ridiculous. So we kind of put too much. I think we put too much on the consumer. And then it's fascinating because we put too much on the consumer at the front end. So to your extent, I think we sell it badly, and then at the back end, they're disappointed. And the touch points in insurance are hard. The problem with insurance is you buy it and then hopefully never use it. And then if you claim for it, if you then have a bad experience, that's your only experience of insurance ever. So yeah, I just think encouraging more touch points and obviously clarity is something we need to drive towards. Do you think it's? Sorry, no, please.
That's what we found with our product for our tradies and professionals. So that we had gardeners, electricians, plumbers coming in, and 1 in 4 of them was interacting with us every month because they were going and doing something on their personal dashboard. They were either providing certificate of currency to a customer, or they were going and changing their insurance. So they might get a job where they need to increase their liability insurance because the job's bigger. In a school you need more liability insurance than you're doing on building on a home. And we found that engagement really helped because customers were going, well, I understand more about my insurance because I can see it all on my dashboard. And again, to have a dashboard, you need to really control the policy administration process so that you can provide that data easily in a digital format rather than having to go and call back on an old system and then hopefully get a response within a reasonable time. And the other things you talked about is all about data. There are so many people working on data. But I think one of the challenges they have is they don't necessarily have the core systems to run it on.
Sure.
And really that's why we've gone to the whole end-to-end process, is because we can bring that data in and use it to the best of their ability, or we can help them use it to the best of their ability through our SaaS platform.
Yeah, I was looking at the website, and my understanding is there's sort of 3 different themes of your offering, which is like, package it's like new products, new markets, and then taking products digital, or 3 objectives it might be from the platform. I hope I'm reading that right from the website, but I wondered if there's been any more sort of demand for those different sort of themes or different agendas over the kind of life cycle of the business. If that's clear enough as a question.
Yeah. So we're really doing, the way that most big insurers are interacting with insurtech at the moment is starting on the peripheral products, starting on the smaller portfolios. There's not too many big insurance companies that have yet put their homeowners or their motor insurance onto an insurtech platform.
Yeah.
And that's where we want to go. We want those products to be on our platform over time, but we know that insurers are inherently conservative, and what they'll do is they'll start with either new products or new markets, or taking existing products digital. So really that's why we've focused on that. We want to get to the core, but we realise that insurers aren't going to get to the core until they try us out for a while. They see other people using us more at the core. And over time, we definitely want to replace core policy administration systems and have all those operating in the cloud with great flexibility. So the business, so as our business evolves, then we will get into more core products. And I think, and you look at the core products at the moment, so many of them are operating on 20-year-old technology or 30-year-old technology, or some insurance companies are still struggling to get their technology out of the basement and into the cloud. And we want them to go the next step and get it into a SaaS platform where and that process takes time. The insurance industry, as I said, is inherently conservative. So we're here for the long journey, and it'll take a while to get all of that into a SaaS platform where it should be, because it'll lower costs for businesses and give them great, fantastic more control. So
there's definitely sort of a move in the right direction and an evolution. But as you were talking, I was thinking, I remember having this ludicrous conversation with one of the world's largest reinsurance companies, and they were I put a new person in there, a very senior person on the claims side, and he said, Alex, the system can't produce accurate loss data, and essentially, and I was like, where are they getting it from? And they went, oh, we asked the brokers. And when you're thinking, all right, well, okay, and it was the system was failing, and it was because they were running on like such old tech and such bad tech, and I'm sure that's changed now, because it's probably 7 years ago or something, but it was 7 years ago, it still wasn't acceptable. But it's fascinating how kind of slowly these things kind of move. But as you say, it is risk aversion. We've little bites, prove the worth and go in. What's the kind of product makeup? Working with like new digital sort of MGAs or big in carriers, or who's a typical partner for you in Evari, if there is a typical one, or is there a bit of a mix?
Well, fortunately, there's a bit of a mix. We're dealing with with a full range of from personal customers with insurers dealing with personal customers through to mid-sized corporates. So we've got one customer is asking 400 questions and doing multiple properties and multiple assets, for mid-sized corporates. And then we've got small business, so we've got personal customers, and then we're dealing with some life. We're mainly general insurance, mainly non-life, but a full range of whether that's Lloyd's cover holders or whether it's fully regulated insurers. So it's really a combination of customers, and really that's, we've done that purposefully too, because we wanted to prove that we could operate in a broad range. Sure. A lot of people come to us and say, "Oh, you're just small business insurance," and I say, "Well, that's a good place to start, because it's a very underserviced market. But we can definitely do personal insurance and definitely do mid-market corporate as well."
Yeah, the SME space is the great unloved, isn't it? Because it's a huge amount of premium volume, but it's because of that volume. If it's inefficient, it's not profitable, and therefore you can't invest the time and care. And one of the things that I've been quite slow on the uptake on, if I must admit, was how important it was to, I think there's always going, oh, right, brilliant, we can be more efficient, we can save, we can make more money. But it's like, we can be more efficient, we can spend more time with our customers. We can get them to love insurance that little bit more. And I don't think there's been enough focus from me on that, and I don't think there's been enough focus on the industry from that, because someone came onto the on podcast and said that the insurance industry is built around one customer, and that was the broker. I debate whether that's fair. I might ask you whether you think that's a sort of a fair comment. I think it was slightly barbed, but I kind of understood what they meant by it.
Yeah, well, look, a broker is a professional buyer, and some of the systems are definitely set up for professional buyers rather than
exactly.
But I think the brokers, a lot of people say, the insurtech will be the end of the brokers, but look, customers still need advice. This is a complex area. What the brokers want tools to make it easy. Just like the customers want tools to make it easy. And there's some level of customers where it's just not valuable for a broker to be involved. The broker doesn't want to be involved in a £500 insurance policy because they can't make the money on it. They want to spend their time on a £5,000 or a £10,000 insurance policy. So how do we get a way of servicing that? That few hundred to $1,000 worth of insurance policies. It has to be through technology, and it has to be through flexible technology that every customer feels like it's them.
Yeah. No, you're completely right. No, the brokers get a bit of a kick in the insurtech scene, and no, I completely agree. I mean, look, as someone who's essentially a middleman in that's my business, and every time there's been I remember when loads of our clients went out and got Monster when it was all about advertising. When we've got Monster, we don't need us now. Okay, 3 months later, they're like, how do you get through all of these profiles and resumes? And then it was the same with LinkedIn and all of these things. They're all tools. You still need someone to give advice and manage the journey, but it does have an indication on value and volume. You're probably going to work on more high value stuff, and we've seen that reflecting on the recruitment market. Most recruitment businesses now are only interested in the mid to senior end, because people are doing the kind of the more kind of day-to-day stuff themselves, and that makes sense. And it's the same with the broking community. The juice has got to be worth the squeeze, isn't it? So if there's smaller accounts, but we need to cater for that by better tech and efficiency. I wanted to ask you about one of your other hats that you wear. You're a non-exec at Insurtech Australia. Wanted to know about the insurtech scene in Australia. Give us a snapshot. What's happening?
Yeah. Well, look, Australia is quite an interesting country to have insurtech come out of, because some stats for you. We're the 15th largest insurance market in the world, so we're not the biggest, but we're 55th ranked by population, so 15th ranked by insurance, so we're higher ranked than that. And the challenges we have in this country are we're geographically diverse. We've got all the natural disasters you want to think of. At the moment we've got floods and fires happening, and we'll have cyclones before too long. And so there's so we've got all the challenges of a major insurance market, but we've got an advanced economy. We've got people who the population take up technology, and we have a pretty good regulator here too. I mean, actually, another job I have is I sit on the one of the government's digital finance advisory panels. So for ASIC, which is the sort of the company's house sort of regulator equivalent down here. So the Australian Securities and Investment Commission, sort of a combination of them and a few other regulators, I suppose. But all the Australian regulators turn up to that, and I represent Insurtech on that. But obviously, I'm on the board of Insurtech Australia. I helped set up Insurtech Australia. It's now in its 5th year. We've got 80 Insurtech members, and we have a lot of corporate members. And the thing that happens well down here, because we're not a big market, everyone knows each other. And what we're finding is that the corporates and the Insurtechs are working together. And we're really focused on how do we do stuff in this market, and then how do we take the best of what we do to other markets, which is why we started down under. But when you're in 1% of the market, we're only 1% of the global insurance market. You've got to go somewhere else, which is obviously for us, London. London was the obvious place to go. So that's why my two co-founders now live there. Yeah, so what we're seeing is some insurtechs now be quite successful. So probably the best known Australian insurtech is Cover Genius. I don't know if you've met with those guys. They operate in 60 countries and across all 50 states in the US. They want to be the world leader in embedded insurance. There's another one who's just raised a lot of money here, Honey Insurance, who's bringing device technology to home insurance. And then there's people like us who are taking technology from here, building it for the Australian market and taking it offshore. So yeah, so it's quite a vibrant environment here. The tech world in Australia is growing. We've got Atlassian's obviously based here. Canva's done well. They're both leading the light. In the fintech space, Afterpay was just bought out by Square, or Block, they're now called. Got Airwalk here. In the regtech space, we're one of the leaders in regtech in the world. Yeah, so there's a growing tech community here, and particularly fintech, insurtech is quite strong because that's quite good at this country.
Atlassian features on. I've done a talk a couple of times on talent attraction in tech space, and Atlassian is featured on every single one I've ever done because they famously did this thing where they basically didn't have enough engineers in Australia, so they drove a bus into Europe with written on the side we've come to steal your geeks written on the side of it, and they had contracts ready to go on the bus. They interviewed people on the bus and they made offers on the spot and then just shipped everyone to Australia. So but yeah, it's fascinating. It is a really vibrant scene actually, because I'm a bit of a nerd and I follow sort of technology as a kind of rule anyway in technology businesses, and it's been fascinating to see how much is actually on the go in Australia. So it's fascinating to watch the insurtech scene grow. I wanted to ask you one last question. I promise I won't take up any more of your time. I just wanted to ask about partnerships because it's a smaller scene, it's a smaller market. How important are partnerships to those sort of insurtech Australia? Do you have partnerships with maybe Insurtech London or Insurtech UK, and wanted to get into if any of those have borne specific fruit as well, if you had any sort of success stories out of that at all.
Yeah, look, so Insurtech Australia helped set up the Global Insurtech Alliance. So there are 16 insurtechs around the world as part of that, and we've been driving that. Look, Australians, as you know, love to travel. So we've all been to many of these things offshore, and it's actually been really good. So the Insurtech UK guys, Insurtech London guys, the Insurtech London guys, I should say, Insurtech New York, Hartford, Des Moines, the guys in California. So we're really working across as an Insurtech, working across multiple locations, and my particular focus on the board is how do we better integrate with what's happening elsewhere, because we've got some good ideas, but there are some great ideas. Obviously, we're only 1% of the insurance market.
Yeah.
So how do we leverage the best, and how do we work with people? And look, the great thing is generally people like to work with Australians. They don't see us as a threat, and we like to work with other people. So look, I'd say that this is only going to work through partnerships. We're only going to get change in the insurance industry. Customers are only going to get better serviced by insurtechs and the incumbents working together. And in the Australian scene, 80% of the insurtechs want to work with incumbents, and only 20% are competing. And probably the reason why it's only 20% is because our market's a lot smaller. So you can't be a lemonade here because the market's not big enough. You have to go somewhere else. As Cover Genius has with being in other markets. But most of us are focused on how do we build partnerships, how do we leverage those relationships we've got in the industry, how do we build new ones so that we can do stuff across the world.
Yeah. I think that's a great rallying cry to end on. Daniel, thank you so much for your time. It's fascinating to hear your take on the insurtech scene, but also thank you for walking us through Evari. It's super interesting, and particularly sharing that kind of journey on the kind of pivots and iterations, which we don't always get into. I think some people keep them in the dark, in the secret, going, "Oh no, we always meant to do this. It's part of the master plan." So thank you for your sort of transparency there. But no, it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope when we do get to travel, we'll get a chance to meet in person. But thank you for being a guest on the podcast.
Right. Well, look, thanks for having me on the podcast. It's been great to talk to you, Alex.
Thanks, Daniel. Take care. All the best. Bye.